everyone, and thank you for joining us at Young Entrepreneurs of the World. Today, I am so pleased to introduce Taylor Shanklin. She's the founder and CEO of Barlele, who'll be sharing her brand expertise in her sessions entitled Scrappy is a Method, Not Your Look, How to Develop Your Brand on an Entrepreneur's Budget. And with that, I'm going to let Taylor take it away. And thanks so much for being here, Taylor.
Hey, thank you so much. It's good to be here. I'm going to get rolling. We've got 30 minutes and a lot to roll through. So give me one moment. I'll get my screen shared here. All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I've learned a lot about being scrappy in my career. I've worked for startups. I've worked with a lot of nonprofit organizations. And so over the past 15 years in digital marketing and leading marketing teams and doing branding, I've really figured out what scrappy means. So I'm excited to talk about it today. I am Taylor. You can call me T Shank. That's what my friends call me. And I am the CEO and founder of a content marketing and branding agency called Barlele. All right. Did you know, and maybe you've heard this stat before, it takes 5 to 7 times for someone to remember your brand. 5 to 7 times. So when you think about how you show up and how people experience your brand, it's important. It's important to get their attention. It's important to show up in a repeatable and consistent way and not to show up too scrappy, because you want people to experience you in a positive light. When they see you repeatedly over and over again, that 5 to 7 times, you want them to remember you as a good brand experience. Branding is kind of a nebulous term, right? It's marketing is sort of easier to understand, but a lot of times when you think about brand, you think, well, what does that even mean? And it really is, at the simplest way to explain it is, it's how people experience you and your company and your organization, and you even as a personal brand. Now, you might be thinking about the vision of your brand, particularly if you're new in the game, you're a startup, you're a small business, and you've got a small budget. In your head, you think, I want to look like this. I want to be experienced like this. Our product is this great. It's fabulous. It's fancy, it's cultured, it looks great. People have a great time when they show up in our room, and they experience this when they walk into an interaction with our brand. But oftentimes when we have a scrappy budget, the reality is this: we're pinching every single penny. So today we're going to get into tools and methods, really, that I've learned over my time in marketing on how to pinch those pennies and give people this kind of an experience. And it often begins with taking the word scrappy that we often hear in startup world and entrepreneur world and turning that kind of negative sounding word into a positive and thinking about it differently. So I don't think about how scrappy is a word that I associate with a brand that I'm building or with my brand, but I do think about it as a mindset. How do I approach things? How do I operate in a scrappy way, but make sure my brand looks like that fine dining experience when people walk into it? And it really is about first shifting your thinking, right? So we think by definition that scrappy is consisting of disorganized, untidy, or incomplete parts. And we really don't want our brand to come off that way. So let's turn that negative into a positive. Let's think about how scrappy is a mindset, and how a scrappy mindset is about being effective with your brand, with your budget, with every single penny that you have. But a scrappy brand is not taken seriously. And I say this because I've actually worked with plenty of organizations over the years who have said, well, we need to look scrappy because we need to look like we are spending our money wisely right now. We're in that mode. And I just say a big no to that. All right. We always need to look professional in a way that people are going to take our brand seriously. So when they see us that first time, that second time, that third time, that fifth time, that seventh time, then it resonates. And then they're starting to feel that fine dining experience. So Scrappy is a mindset. That's the mantra of today. It's really about rolling up your sleeves, getting dirty, trying things, doing the work, putting process into play to use that budget wisely. So there's 3 things that come into being scrappy in method and mindset and not in your branding. It is about changing your mindset and shifting, getting creative, having an open mindset to trying different things, to not always do things the way that we've always done them, but to think creatively and out of the box. It's about finding the right tools. There are a lot of good free ones out there. We live in a world of freemium software. There's a ton of stuff to try. There's a lot of ways to outsource to get help with your brand, to make it look great at an affordable rate. And then it's about method too, putting process and rigor and methodologies into place that allow you to consistently show up and get the best bang for your buck and pinch those pennies wisely, but not look like you're pinching those pennies. So 3 things: mindset, tools, method. That's what we're going to go deep on here today. But I want to start with what not to do, because I see these things a lot. These are bad behaviors. These are things that we need to say no to. These are what I call scrappy snooze fest brand behaviors. These are things that are going to put everybody to sleep if this is the first way that they experience your brand. So what are those things? First off, we've got to stop with this whole, could I just give 15 minutes of your time? This is not a strategy. I know it feels free and scrappy to spend your time this way, right? Well, it's just my time. I can go out and I can pound the pavement and I could do the whole 15-minute song and dance, but it's really not that great for your brand in the long run. People are over this. This is totally tired. I would just say, stop doing it. It doesn't mean you can't reach out to people you don't know. That is a good thing, but please be creative. Really think about who you're reaching out to and give them a personalized message. Don't reach out to someone, and give them the 15 minutes of your time speech. Everybody's ignoring that. It's not a strategy. It actually makes you look scrappy in a bad way. So let's stop doing that. We also need to stop talking about only ourselves. So in branding and marketing, one of the best ways to get people's attention is to talk about what's in it for them. Well, we've all had that friend or seen that brand that goes on and on and on only about themselves. Again, it's easy to talk about yourself, right? It's free to talk about yourself, but when you think about the cost of how it looks on your brand, if that's all you're doing, it's not good. It's not bad behavior. It's a scrappy snooze fest. So don't do that. You've got to talk about your customer. You've got to engage them in a way that shows them what's in it for them. All right, I had to put this in here because when we think about scrappy, we do still run into this, right? Where we're coming up with I need a new logo. I need some new artwork. I'm going to go find what's on Google and just copy and paste stuff. First off, don't do that. You can definitely run into copyright issues and you can run into legal issues. So you need to use resources like stock photography that you pay for or your own photography. And please don't use clip art. And I know this probably sounds like a dumb thing to even say, but I still see it. I still see people going and using clip art and putting that into their slide decks. And that is a scrappy snooze fest brand behavior. The last thing I'll say is if Aunt Jean down the street knows a guy on her block who's a designer and knows how to use MS Paint, and he says he'll do some work for free, you might not necessarily want to take your Aunt Jean up on making that hookup with her friend down the street. He might be okay. He or she might be okay at design, but it really is best to use some of the tools out there to either figure out how to DIY, which I'll get into, or to outsource and find someone who really is talented and pay just even a little bit of money to get something that's really, really sharp. Sometimes these kinds of offers are what I like to call free like kittens. You know, someone gives you a free kitten and it's really not that free. So while we love Aunt Jean, maybe look for your own designers and your own branding experts on your own and find the right fit who you think is going to be great for your brand. Because that's usually what I find how you end up with some of the clip art. And again, I say it because I still see it happen. All right. What it does ultimately is it just makes you go around and around in a circle with the Scrappy brand. So let's get into what you need to do so that you're not chasing your tail. These are some questions to ask yourself if you're looking to build a great brand. First off, sit back and really think about your brand and your brand identity from somebody else's perspective. Now, you know, sometimes we need to step outside of ourselves almost in order to gain awareness about how others experience our brand. Are you aware of your own internal mindset around your brand, right? Are you scrappy in method? Or are you scrappy in your brand? So ask yourself some of these questions to start getting the wheels turning about opportunities for improvement. All right. So let's talk about what to do instead. We talked about the scrappy brand snooze fest that we need to avoid. How do we now go after building a great brand on a budget? Well, like I said earlier, it's about mindset, tools, and methodology. If you have the right mindset, the right tools, and the methodology in place, you can de-scrapify your brand on a scrappy budget. I've had marketing budgets in my career of close to $0 before and done quite a bit by DIYing it, learning how to use the tools, adopting the right mindset, and getting the right processes and methods in place. All right, let's get into mindset first. First, the important thing is to really understand what encompasses your brand, what makes up your brand. So we talked at the very beginning about a brand being the way that people experience you. And the reason why that is so much more than just a logo or copy or colors and fonts. It's about the people who are at your company. It's about the channels that you show up on. It's about your differentiators. What is it that makes you unique in how you serve your customers or your clients? It's about the product, right? What differentiates your product? What is the product? How do you bring value into that person on the other end of the computer screen, looking maybe at your brand on their phone as they're scrolling through their Instagram feed? What is it about your product that's immediately going to resonate with them and bring them value? And then how do you actually serve people? How do you actually show up with customer service? Customer service is a very critical part to your brand. And having good customer service doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend a lot of money. It's about figuring out the right processes and tools in place to show up and deliver on good customer service, to be responsive, to help people solve their problems, to be different, to have a brand identity that looks unique and interesting and catches their attention, to have interesting people working on your brand who customers enjoy interacting with, and to be in the channels and showing up where your customers are. So these are the things that make up a brand and that whole brand experience. These are the things that people experience when they walk into that fancy restaurant that we saw. When it comes to mindset, it's also thinking about branding through the vision of Maslow and the hierarchy of needs. How does your brand, and this doesn't take any money, right? It takes some thinking and it takes some mindset shifting. How does your brand fit in to your target audience's hierarchy of needs? Are you helping them at a base physiological level, at a safety level, at a love and belonging level? Are you giving them esteem and self-esteem, or are you actually helping them reach that transcendence level where they feel like they're achieving greater things? And depending on what your product is, it's going to likely fit in terms of that value that you bring every day into a different place on this pyramid. But this is one of those mindset things about branding. Again, it's getting into the customer's mind and less about talking about yourself, but figuring out how do we fit into their needs and how do we do that. And so when you're thinking about your brand and how you show up well, it really does require taking this sort of deep philosophical step back and figuring out and answering these questions first before you even go spend money on marketing. I always tell our clients that we work with that branding has to come first because you've got to figure these types of big picture questions out. And then you have to build the brand that will actually gain someone's attention. And then when you start spending money on marketing, that's because you have gained the opportunity to market to them. You've gotten their attention because the brand did that. And then your marketing is when you turn on the lead gen and you turn on the money spending and you turn on the paid ads and those types of things. And you get scrappy with how to do the marketing. All right, some mindset lessons that I have learned in my career and how I've been really scrappy and still very successful with building brands on very tiny budgets. One, I shop for talent globally. I'm based in the US. There are a lot of amazing designers, developers, content creators, writers, podcast producers all over the world. And if you open up your mindset and your talent pool globally, you can, on a good budget, find someone who will do a great job for you and get the job done. I've also learned that you don't have to do it all. And this one's really, really, really big, my friends. I've got a life mantra, minimize to maximize. It's all about focusing on the right things to maximize results. And I take that into all of the work that I do, both on a personal level and on a professional level. When I see brands fail, when I see companies fail, when I see startups fail, it's usually because they are just trying to do way too much. You've got to focus on the right things. Come up with your list of the things that you absolutely have to do that are really important, that breathe oxygen into what you are doing at your job every day. Keep all those things on the do it list. If there's stuff with your brand and your marketing that you can delegate, that maybe you can outsource, again, this goes back to shop for talent globally. Delegate it, keep it on the delegated list. And if it's something that's just not that important, that's not going to drive results in terms of brand awareness or revenue or sales, anything like that, then drop it or put it on the punt it to later list. Because when we try to take on too much, we sort of just are okay at all of it. So if you're thinking about building brand awareness, let's say through like a podcast, focus just on that first, get really good at that, and then think about, oh, maybe we can turn this into a different type of content series, but we'll start with the podcast. The other big mindset lesson is that failure is acceptable. We're all humans. Nobody is perfect. Perfect does not exist, not in branding, not in life, not anywhere. When you accept that failure is acceptable, you'll actually get a lot more creative in your branding and your marketing. You'll go out on a limb. You'll try new things. You'll try to say, you know what, we don't know if this is going to stick, but we're going to try it. And when you have that kind of a mindset, it actually helps you push the envelope a little bit more with that scrappy mindset. Back when I had almost zero budget, I realized I was going to have to try things like get in front of the camera and start doing videos. And I started trying them, and some of them were bombs and some of them were really good. And that stuff started to take off. And the only thing that it really cost me was learning some of the tools and my time and a little bit of my pride saying, you know what, failure is acceptable. And people might like this, they might not, but I'm going to try it. All right, I also want to share some mindset tools. These are some of my favorite books in terms of getting into the right mindset. about branding, and then marketing school is more of like a video podcast type series with Neil Patel. But I highly recommend checking out all of these books when you think about building habits, building the right mindset about building great brands and great products. And growth hacker marketing is really good, just talking about the whole ideology of growth hacking and how to be effective with your money and your spend. All right, let's get into tools, and I'm going to do a quick time check. Be as practical as possible. As much as you can, find tools and people that are Swiss Army knives. I like to think of myself in marketing as a Swiss Army knife because, again, I've had to get real scrappy, and I've had to just sit down and teach myself things and figure out how to use Canva and figure out how to use video editing tools. So when you think about maybe even just in terms of like building your team and your tool set, those Swiss Army knives type of people and type of tools can be really effective for your budget and getting a lot done on a small budget. You also need to ask yourself, does the wheel need reinventing? Asking this big picture question can make you really look hard at how you're spending your time and your marketing budget. Sometimes we fall into the trap of, oh, I got to redo this, or I got to come up with this new content all the time. And here's where I'm going to say and get into some methods for not doing that, because usually the wheel doesn't need to be invented. A lot of times you've got tools in your tool belt, you've got content in your tool belt, and all you need to do is spend a little bit of time reinventing it into a new piece of content, even though it's really the same thing that you've been saying, because consistency and replication is what's important. Because remember, if we go back to the beginning of the presentation, it takes someone 5 to 7 times anyways to really have their brand stick with you and resonate. So don't reinvent the wheel when it's really not warranted. This will save you a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of money in your marketing budget. 23%. This is how much revenue increases when you present your brand consistently across all platforms. And this is why I think reinventing the wheel is not important. And again, content marketers fall into this trap often, where we think we have to constantly come up with new content. Well, our readers are going to get bored. Our subscribers are going to get bored. Our followers are going to get bored. No, your followers have 1,000 other things going on during their day, and they're not going to get bored because they probably missed it the first time, or it just didn't connect the first time. So one of the best ways to be scrappy and grow your brand on a budget is to repurpose your content. And this is how you do it. You think about pillar content. What's this one big thing that we've said? How are we saying it? And how do we turn that into a lot of different types of pieces of content that look like they're different, that look like we have a lot of stuff? All right, let's get into, I know we've got about 5 minutes, so I'm going to kind of run through the rest of this. Design tools, you've probably used these, you've probably seen some of these, but again, at Canva, I started using Canva, I don't know, when it was pretty new, maybe 7, 8, 9-ish years ago. It's amazing. It does basically everything except for make my coffee these days, it seems, and I highly recommend you use it if you're not already. If you want to DIY it, it's a great way to do that. There was also a competitive tool called Crello. It's now Vista Create, very similar to Canva. The next thing I'll say is just hire for it. Again, this goes back to hiring for talent globally. Upwork, 99 Designs, Fiverr, Pinji, Kemp. These are just a few places where you can get incredible designers to help you with your brand, to help you with your look at all sorts of very reasonable rates. All right, lastly, in methodology, first you need to manage yourself and your process and your brand and your marketing. So while this doesn't seem like it has anything to do with branding, it's very important when you're thinking about how to be scrappy. Get a project management tool so that you and your team can have all things in the same place together. Repurpose yourself. This goes back to just a couple slides ago. Come up with that pillar piece of content and figure out how to slice and dice it into 20, 30 plus other pieces of content. This is the Garyvee method. If you're a Garyvee fan, you've probably heard him talk about pillar content to micro content strategy. It really works, and it's a great way to get scrappy with your budget. And then lastly, this is one of the best methods I have found. Leverage yourself, leverage your knowledge. Give your stuff away on other people's channels that have a larger following. So if you've got a scrappy budget, you can't go out and necessarily spend a lot on Google ads or LinkedIn ads or Facebook ads or anything like that. Build partnerships, get on other people's podcasts, get on other people's webinars. If you have channel partners who have a large following, share your knowledge and get in front of other people for free to grow your brand and to grow your own awareness about your brand. All right, own it, own your message, and just replicate it with consistency. It's really just about those 2 action steps. Don't do it all. Choose a channel that best fits for you. And then again, just be consistent, right? Going back to that 23% revenue increase is about consistency. If you're just getting started, choose 1 or 2 channels, do them really, really, really well, and be consistent. Lastly, every great brand really starts with the first step, right? So if you're just getting started and you do have a scrappy budget, I like to tell people to train in sprints. Take 1 little step, do 1 little sprint at a time, and eventually you'll get there. And there's some really good examples of people who we've seen do this. And I'm going to show you some of those, and maybe this will resonate with you. But people who've built their brands over time, who have evolved their brands over time. Think about Seth Godin. He's got those yellow glasses. That doesn't cost a lot, right? But like, it's a look, it's a thing you remember about him. It's a vibe that he gives off. And one of my favorite personal brands is Michael Jordan. It didn't cost him any money to stick his tongue out, but it sure made a big difference in how people perceived him and how he became remembered and how he became known. So there's little things like that that you can do with your brand that adds personality that doesn't cost a dime, but it's just something that you do. It's how you show up. It's how you interact. It's how you engage. So I know that was a lot. I'm a fast talker. I get through things fast. I hope this was helpful, and I'm open for any questions. I just want to say thank you. If you want to go find me online, you can go to barlele.com, or you can find me personally on these other channels. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm there a lot and happy to talk.
Thank you, Taylor. That was really helpful, insightful, and lots of actionable tips, which is always, I'm sure, appreciated by our audience as they think a lot about how to build a brand on a dime, essentially, as you said. So anybody that wants to reach out to Taylor, again, Taylor is the CEO and founder of Barlele. You can find her at her website. You can find her on LinkedIn. I'm sure she'd be happy to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us at Young Entrepreneurs of the World.
Thank you.